Join us on the last bus home.
So purely as a time-saving method, they use fish.
Every day?
Well, not every day. That would be silly, Lee. But as often as maybe 3 times a week, yeah. Fish. Who'd have thought?
Fair enough, mate. But it's not the reason we're here tonight.
I'm guessing it's not why I'm here.
So, yeah, mate, tonight's journey, we're going on a true paranormal crime tour.
Tour?
Tour, mate. Because we're not just staying in one location. As usual, with a bus, we're going to spin it around a few destinations. Tonight, what we're going to do, we're going to check out some true crime stories, but they all have a bit of a paranormal twist. So, you know, nothing says a fair trial like a testimony from a dead person, because dead don't lie, do they? And if the police can't solve the case, the dead person can just possess someone or haunt someone until the crime gets solved. And that's kind of the general gist of these stories. What I'm going to do, I'm going to run through a couple of my favourite ones that I was going through in the research. Some good ones, and I kind of like the twist. And, you know, there's a lot of evidence behind these. Some crimes did get solved purely based on maybe a possession or a ghost testimony. So these are kind of maybe more settled in the courthouse. But we'll go through a few and you can give me your take on what you think. As you know, I'm already sold, so that's just me.
Yeah, I'm a bit of a harder sell, Lee, but, you know, off you go.
True, I'll do my best. Right, so the first one, the murder of Teresita Bassa. I'm not sure if you've ever come across this one because, again, these ones I'm running through were pretty famous, made the headlines. So the story of Teresita Bassa's murder is one of the most bizarre and, like I say, famous cases involving a paranormal intervention, often called as the voice from the grave case. So on February 21st of 1977 in Chicago, Illinois, 47-year-old Teresita Bassa, a respiratory therapist or nurse, however you want to do that, originally from the Philippines, but she worked at Edgewater Hospital in Chicago. So one night she finished her shift, returned to her apartment, Edgewater neighborhood, and had dinner. Around 7:30 p.m., she spoke on the phone with a friend from the hospital for about 20 minutes. She ended the call by saying she was expecting a male visitor. Okay. Yep. So things are going to take a dark turn. So around 8:40 p.m., the firefighters responded to a blaze in her apartment. They discovered a nude body under a burning mattress that had been set ablaze to what looked like to cover a crime.
Nude?
Well, a butcher knife was still embedded deep in her chest. She had been stabbed to death, but her clothing was folded nearby. So that scene kind of suggested a possible wrong attack, if you catch my drift. So that was maybe followed by a murder and then arson to destroy the evidence. So maybe some grim things went on there. So police found little to go on. One vague note reading something like, get theatre tickets for AS, but that was it. No strong leads, nothing. You got to remember, no one knows who this dude was at this time, or even that a dude was there. It's just, you know, kind of like what a friend maybe said on the phone or something like that. No real proper kind of evidence to go on. So the case quickly went cold with no solid suspects or physical evidence pointing to anyone specific. Now, let's bring in the old paranormal bit. So months later, in August 1977, the investigation took a surreal turn. Dr. Jose Chua, a physician, contacted police with an extraordinary claim. His wife, Remy Chua, a respiratory therapist who had briefly worked at the same hospital as Teresita, had begun experiencing strange trances or episodes. During these episodes, which happened multiple times, Remy will go into like a trance-like state, speak in a different voice, sometimes Tagalog, which was Teresita's native language, and identified herself as Teresita Bassa. The spirit urgently asked Dr. Chua to go to the police because her killer was still free. So the possessing voice named the murderer Alan Showery, another respiratory therapist, an orderly at the Edgewater Hospital who worked with both Teresita and Remy. According to the channel's messages, Showery had visited Teresita's apartment under the pretense of repairing a broken TV set. He had some repair skills and basically just offered some help. Once inside, he allegedly stabbed her, robbed her of her jewelry, including a pearl ring and some other bits, possibly assaulted her, and then covered her body with a mattress, set her on fire, and got the hell out of there. So Dr. Chua emphasised that he had no prior knowledge of the murder details and barely knew Teresita. He only learned of the case through his wife's episodes. So he was sceptical at first, but he eventually went to the detectives after the spirit kept like channeling his wife and insisting. So what happened following this? So the police followed this unusual lead despite its supernatural origin. They questioned Alan Showery, who initially denied involvement, but investigators checked his girlfriend, Yanka Kalmus, and discovered she possessed several pieces of jewelry matching the descriptions of the items stolen from Teresita's apartment. Confronted with the physical evidence, Showery confessed he admitted to going to Teresita's apartment to fix the TV, decided to rob her, stabbing her when she resisted, taking the jewelry, giving some to his girlfriend as gifts, claiming they were like belated Christmas presents, and then he set fire to cover his tracks. So Showery was arrested, charged, and his trial became known as the Voice from the Grave case. The defense tried to discredit the evidence's origin as hearsay from a supposed possession, but the physical evidence, the stolen jewelry, stood independently. So after an initial mistrial, Showery changed his plea to guilty in 1979 and was sentenced to 14 years in prison. So pretty mental case there, because it basically led to the conviction of the actual murderer, and that wouldn't have happened if this random woman wasn't getting these like possessions and things going through her. So this story was quite a famous one, and it inspired, I can't remember if you used to watch it, Unsolved Mysteries. There was a segment on there that covered this. Obviously, some books have come out of it. So disregarding of whatever you think about it, at the end of the day, like I say, this killer got what was coming to him, and that was all based on pretty much like a ghost's possession and testimonies. So I'm not sure what you think of that.
Did the judge acknowledge the ghost part, or was that just something the police worked off?
Well, it seemed to be that the police worked off it, and yeah, looking at the research, I think they tried to like quash it because it was, I mean, obviously supernatural evidence is never going to stand in court. I don't think that's an actual thing. But
well, it did in Salem.
I think, yeah. Well, yeah, back in the day.
Yeah, I like it. I like the case, and I do remember actually seeing it on Unsolved Mysteries. I'm actually working through them again at the moment. You know, there are crimes that apparently get solved by the dead. There's detective mediums and medium detectives. Continue, Lee, please.
Sweet.
Yeah, I like that. I'm into it.
Right. Well, I will move on to the next one. So this is the Greenbrier Ghost. Not sure if you've heard of this one, but it's a really old one, mate, so probably not. It's from 1897, featuring someone called Zona Heaster Shue. And this is, again, cited as one of the most famous true crime stories with a bit of a paranormal twist. So the Greenbrier Ghost, again, like I said, classed as one of America's most famous true crime stories, often described as the only documented US murder where a ghost's alleged testimony helped secure the conviction. So the central supernatural element revolves around like vivid, repeated apparitions of the victim appearing to the mother, providing like specific details about what had happened. And that later matched like the autopsy evidence. So that's how it all kind of got solved. But let's go into it because it's a pretty cool one. So the victim of this case was Elva Zona Hester Shue, commonly called Zona Hester Shue. So she was 23.
What's the short?
Yeah, this is it, man. She was 23, born around 1876. Now, her killer, check out this name, Erasmus Stribling Trout Shue, or Edward for short. Some people called him Trout. He had a few names, none of them really that flattering. So he was
a blacksmith. Why he becomes a killer.
Yeah, this is it. A lifelong of living with that name. So he was a blacksmith in his early 30s, and he had a criminal past, including prison time for trying to steal horses. So he was a horse thief. He'd had 2 previous marriages, so, bit of a boy. Both wives, right, died under suspicious circumstances. So, I mean, come on, how many red flags do you want? It's not the ideal catch, is he? Let's face it.
And you managed to find 2 women that would want that name.
Exactly, and killed them both. Allegedly, not the best, but old Trout doing what he did. So let's go through a bit of the timeline of what happened here. So Zona Hester met and quickly married old Trout, Erasmus, whatever we want to call him. So Zona's mother, Mary Jane Hester, strongly disapproved, and this was all due to Shue's shady background and reputation. So her mother even said, "Don't do this. He wrong for you." She said, "No, I love this man." Didn't work out well for her. So on January 23rd, 1897, Zona was found dead at the bottom of the stairs in her home. Shue sent a local boy to the store and claimed Zona had fallen into a faint or died suddenly, initially attributed to an everlasting faint heart failure or complications from pregnancy or maybe a miscarriage. When Dr. George W. Knapp arrived, Shue prevented a thorough examination, cradled her head and insisted no further checks, so looked like he was trying to hide something. He dressed the body himself, wrapping a high collar and veil around her neck to hide details. The death was initially ruled natural, and Zona was buried quickly. So, not great. That was basically case closed and shut there. So, in the weeks following the death, Mary Jane Hester, grieving and suspicious, began experiencing repeated visitations from her daughter's full-bodied ghost. These occurred over around 4 nights. Accounts vary slightly on the exact number, but consistently described as nightly apparitions at her bedside. The ghost appeared vividly and spoke directly. So she accused her husband of murder, claiming he flew into a rage, often cited basically just anger over no meat cooked for supper, things like that. Just not a nice dude, basically. She demonstrated the killing by twisting her own head unnaturally 180 degrees facing backwards to show her neck had been broken at the first joint and squeezed and strangled. The spirit urged the mother to seek justice and push for basically like get that body, bring it back up because there's shit on there that needs to be seen, insisting the truth would be found in the neck. Mary Jane described these as real, tangible encounters, not dreams, said she was completely awake at the time, and maintained they were insistent until she acted. So, the story continues, mate. Late January, early February of 1897, convinced by the apparitions, Mary Jane approached authorities and the prosecutor. She insisted on exhuming the body. A second examination autopsy was ordered, and that autopsy, mate, revealed a broken neck, a crushed windpipe, bruising consistent with strangulation, and this exactly matched the ghost description. No natural causes like heart issues that was in the original report. So, shortly after the exhumation, Shue was arrested for murder and held in Lewisburg jail. Community outrage grew. There were even rumours of a near lynching attempt. So people were not happy about this shit. Back in the day, that's how they solved the problems.
Lynching.
So, lynching,
harsh,
mate.
but,
It is. But for this guy, I say it's fair play.
well, yeah.
So
There's a time and a place for it, isn't there?
Exactly. June 22nd to June 30th, 1897, the trial at Greenbrier County Courthouse. So the prosecution focused on the circumstantial evidence, the autopsy results. Shue's suspicious behaviour preventing the exam and what he was doing, like trying to hide the neck, the witness accounts of his temper and inconsistencies in his story. Mary Jane Heaster testified as a key witness. The prosecutor initially avoided the ghost story to keep questioning factual, but the defense cross-examined her aggressively about the apparitions. So, hoping to kind of like discredit her and basically call it all off as nonsense. Mary Jane stood firm despite all this, insisting it was no dream, bitch, and detailing the visits, including the head-twisting demonstration and the exact cause of the death, which led her to say, look, my daughter was strangled, yo.
So did he strangle her, then twist her head around, or?
I think the twisting the head around because it was more to show that the bone was broken basically the vertebrae dislocated at the first joint, and that's what they found. So she was so exact with what she was saying. Yeah.
Another instance of a ghost being unnecessarily frightening.
Hey, mate, just how to get the point across. And to be fair, if you could, you would. How many situations you've been in where if you could just twist your head 180 degrees to freak out the person in front of you?
Mate, yeah.
Shit all the time.
Yeah, I'd be happy to be able to do that. But what I do avoid trying to do with people I'm trying to get to help me is frighten them.
Yeah.
I try a kinder approach personally to get to secure assistance from people.
Fair play.
Not twisting my head around, because that's just silly.
So back to this case, bud. The defence tactic on this backfired. So by introducing the ghost testimony themselves, they made it hard for the judge to exclude it. The judge allowed it in the record, and many jurors and the community members believed her account. After an 8-day trial and brief deliberation, about an hour or so, the 12-man jury found Shue guilty of first-degree murder. So the jury recommended mercy, no death penalty, but the judge sentenced him to life in the state penitentiary. So Shue was sent there to prison and died there in around 1900, only about 3 years later, so he only served a little bit of his sentence before he popped his clogged.
I'm sure some half-competent lawyer worth his weight in cheese sandwiches would be able to get an appeal on that sentence, surely.
Well, when the testimonies are so, do you know what I mean, exact. I mean, you got to think, this lady was buried and it was case solved. There was no wrongdoing. For her body to get exhumed purely on the vision of a ghost. Mate.
And nobody questioned the lady who knew all these details about the death and the body.
I think this is, for me, mate, anyway, this is straight cut paranormal. I am sold. Sign me up, Buttercup. This is a true case.
Okay, I just think there was some, some failures in the system there.
I hope if you're ever faced with a paranormal jury, for whatever crime that may be, I hope it goes well. Because when you're relying on the spirit realm for your freedom, trust, brother, trust.
Okay, well, if I'm ever murdered and my ghost feels the need to get the bugger caught, right, I'm going to show up in the courtroom. I'm going to tell someone In fact, my ghost, instead of going to somebody and saying, "Go tell the police," I'll go to the popo myself.
You could.
Yeah, and I'll just tell them as a ghost in that made me head spin around.
I don't mind that. Well, just to end this little story, and for our listeners in America, there's a historical marker in West Virginia State, and it was erected in 1991, and it's near Smoot on US Highway 60, and it reads, "Interred in nearby cemetery is Zona Heaster Shue. Her death in 1897 was presumed natural until her spirit appeared to her mother to describe how she was killed by her husband Edward. Autopsy on the exhumed body verified the apparition's account. Edward, found guilty of the murder, was sentenced to the state prison. Only known case in which testimony from a ghost helped convict a murderer." That's all written on the
written
sign.
on what? On a sign?
On a historical marker. So you can visit that bad boy. And Zona herself is buried at Seoul United Methodist Church Cemetery, and that's near Smoot in Rennell. So I think she's actually visited quite a bit, because it's like I say, it was a bit of a famous case, and people visit the grave and leave offerings, stuff like that. So yeah, cool case. So I've got a few more little ones, a few little stories that I kind of came across that I thought was cool, and maybe a little treat for you at the end, but we'll get to that.
I like treats.
You do, mate. Who done? Right, so let's have a look. And our first one is Fisher's Ghost, and this is Frederick Fisher, and this is Campbelltown, New South Wales in Australia. So this guy disappeared June 17th, 1826. So again, another old one. So English-born farmer Frederick Fisher vanished from his Campbelltown property. His neighbour, George Worrell, claimed Fisher had sailed back to England and signed over his farm. How convenient. No one suspected foul play. Can you believe that? He just sailed back to England. He just left me with everything. Sure, buddy. Pull the other one.
You just
months later, local farmer John Farley had a terrifying encounter. While walking at night, he saw the unmistakable apparition of Frederick Fisher sitting on the rail of a bridge, glowing, and he was translucent. The ghost raised its arm and pointed repeatedly towards a distant paddock by the creek. Then it vanished. Farley was shaken, and he told friends and the authorities. The vision was so specific, and he insisted that the police search the exact spot the spirit had indicated to. What happened next was they found Fisher's body buried in a shallow grave precisely where the ghost pointed. What came of this? Worrell was arrested, confessed to murdering Fisher over the property. There was like a debt property dispute. And then he was hanged, because that's how they did back in the day. And this ghost story became Australia's most famous folktale. An annual festival in Campbelltown still commemorates Fisher's ghost. Nice little story for you there.
Struth.
Exactly, mate. But again, led to the conviction and the hanging of a bad guy.
So this was on the back of just pointing at a field?
That's it, mate. Just a spirit pointing away. And they were like, we need to look down there. And it was his body. That's what you get. Right, for our next one, mate, I'm bringing the bus back over to Blighty. And this is called The Red Barn Murder. Maria Martin. Again, an old one. Back in May of 1827 in Polstead in Suffolk, England. So Maria Martin, a 26-year-old local woman, disappeared after leaving home to elope with her lover, William Corder, at the Red Barn in Polstead. Corder later claimed she had gone to Ipswich and was fine, even sending fake letters. Don't worry about it, nothing to see here. Well, the breakthrough came through supernatural dreams. Maria's stepmother, Anne Martin, began having recurring, horrifying visions in the dreams. Maria's ghost appeared and pointed repeatedly to the Red Barn, revealing she had been murdered and buried there under the floorboards. The visions were so vivid and insistent that Anne described them in detail to her husband Thomas, urging him to dig. despite his ridicule. He was like, lady, what are you talking about? Don't talk shit. I ain't digging nothing. But he did. Twice before Christmas, 1827, the dream returned with the same message. So, this was quite an insistent thing, and you're just going to want to get it solved, aren't you? Thomas, as I said, finally searched the barn, and after shoveling dirt, they uncovered Maria's body exactly where the ghost had indicated. So again, another precise shot from the spirit realm. The body showed it been shot, stabbed, and then buried. Corder was tracked down. He had fled and basically remarried. So he was a right dirty sod. He was tried and hanged, because that's again how they do, back in 1828. The stepmother's dream testimony was presented in court and became central to the sensational Penny Dreadful retellings. The case is still remembered as one solved by Maria's ghost from beyond the grave. So again, another case solved where the ghost has come forward and done what it needed to do.
Wasn't Edgar Allan Poe fond of this kind of retribution? Or resolution, should I say?
He was dark.
But yeah, he liked to have, the telltale heart. That was more of a guilt thing, more of a conscience than a ghost.
Definitely. I think in these kind of situations, because the ghost always appears quite near the crime, or it appears in maybe like someone's dream, we'll go with the old sort of theory of that if something really bad happened to you, your spirit's going to linger until something gets solved. Now, personally, I don't really buy that theory. You know me, I'm more of a science guy. I'm more about the energies. But if something did happen like that, and we know places can absorb energy and keep stuff contained, might be easy for something to break through from the spirit realm and be like, look, some horrible shit happened here. Get it sorted. Do you know what I mean? Staying in England, County Durham, the Lumley area, and this is the ghost of Anne Walker. So this is mid-17th century, right? Servant Anne Walker, around the age of 20, and she was pregnant, vital bit to the story, vanished after being sent away by a master relative, John Walker. She was never seen alive again. A local acquaintance named John Graham was visited multiple times by Anne's restless ghost. The spirit appeared in full detail, describing a murder. She had been lured to a remote spot, attacked with a pickaxe by a man named Mark Sharp, and this was all to conceal a pregnancy. Not nice. So a body was thrown into a coal pit. The ghost even specified the exact location and the murder weapon, which was also down the pit. The apparitions were so vivid and repeated to Graham that he was so basically just shit scared that he finally just went to the authorities, and they went to the pit. So the body and the pickaxe were recovered exactly as exactly as described. John Walker and Mark Sharp were tried at the Durham courts, convicted on the strength of the ghost testimony and physical evidence, and hanged in 1631. So this is one of England's earliest documented cases of murder victim's spirit allegedly directing the investigation to what happened. So that was quite a cool one, quite a grim one as well. Pickaxing some poor broad and thrown her down a well.
So once again, the person with all the details of the crime and weapon and body location gets away with it again.
I see what you're trying to do here, mate. But, maybe that sounds logical, a bit odd. You know what I mean? Might need a bit more questioning, but...
Yeah, it's a bit far-fetched. I mean, it was clearly a ghost, but...
There you go.
You've got to rule out even the far-fetched stuff, Lee.
This is it, mate. This is it. So, Bud, to end, I'm going to give you a little treat and just a short little tale here. I'm going to throw in a cryptid.
Ooh.
But not just a cryptid. Maybe this guy transcends cryptids. It's the cryptid. You yourself have got a few models on your shelves there at the bus stop. But you might know a bit about this, being the Bigfoot expert you are, but the Sasquatch murders back in 1993, do you recall them?
Well, not personally, but yeah, go on.
Well, mate, the Sasquatch murders in Humboldt County, it was a triple homicide, and this is in Northern California of the United States. So in the Emerald Triangle, which is a notorious cannabis-grown region, rumors spread that 3 unidentified Mexican men, and they were migrant workers, had some rivals in the pot trade. They were brutally torn apart and killed on a remote grow site farm in Humboldt County. Witnesses allegedly described the bodies as mauled in a way that looked like a massive animal attack. Limbs had been ripped off, massive wounds, leading many to blame Bigfoot or the Sasquatch. So the story gained traction through journalist David Holthouse's investigations. This was featured in 2021 Hulu docuseries Sasquatch. So no bodies were ever officially recovered or identified in connection to the cryptid attack, but the rumors went on for decades. Most researchers concluded it was likely the cartel or maybe some grow up violence. With the Bigfoot tail trying to cover it. Well, the evidence kind of points
to science, mate. Follow the science.
This is it, mate. I mean, I'm going Bigfoot. You know where I stand. So even though there was no sort of forensic evidence as a cryptid kill, like I say, many of the witnesses said that there was huge paw-like gashes. And the way the bodies had been ripped apart showed that, if a human had done this, they would have had to have hacked it, maybe with an axe. But this showed in a way that the skin had literally just been stretched and ripped. So, according to this, and American viewers, correct me if I'm wrong, I'm sure there's bears in Northern California, but they said there was no bears ever noted in this area and that they never really went around the pot plants. So, bear attack was kind of ruled out. So, Occam's razor, mate. You go with the next logical explanation. It's bloody Bigfoot.
You do. Vampire. Oh, yeah, Bigfoot.
Fucking vampire. Get real, mate. Bloody hell, this is a fucking educational podcast.
Yeah.
It was Sasquatch.
So, yeah, in the viral video, if it was the cartel, would have been Funky Town, but this one, I suppose, was Monkey Town.
Sasquatch
it was
brother.
Obvious, it's a clear-cut case of the Sasquatch murder.
I'll say so. Well, mate, I hope you enjoyed our little trek through some true crime tales. And I don't know if I managed to sway you on that one, or if we're still going with...
No, I'm 100% sold, Lee.
Nice. Well...
There's no way it could possibly have been the people who had all the details of bodies, weapons, locations at all. Because why would they? Why would they, give up that information for free?
I know, right?
It was clearly paranormal. Yeah.
Exactly. And those ghosts were so specific that it led to some bad dudes either getting hanged or getting clinked up. And I'm all about that. So well done, Spirit Realm. Case solved.
A lot of things ended in hangings, didn't they?
They did. But yeah, a few olden day tales there. Might look into maybe some newer true crime stories, maybe a little bit of a series, because there was a plethora of information out there. And everyone loves a good true crime story, and who don't love a good true crime story with a paranormal twist? Because I sure do.
Exactly. I prefer the cryptid murders, I'll be honest.
Yeah, I might look into that. I might have a look at some true crime involving cryptids. Might be a bit thin on the ground.
When you get into that realm, even with that Sasquatch one, I don't know if you could call them murders rather than animal attacks.
Yeah.
Trekkers getting murdered by lions and stuff in Africa. It's So, yeah, you have to be careful there if cryptid's an animal.
I hear you, mate. I hear you. Anyway, bud, I think this is my stop.
You will. Ding, ding.
Bye.